A lady from Alabama who represents the city, the town that is on everybody's breath over the past several months, the Honorable Terry Sewell.
Mr. Speaker, I applaud the CBC for this special order hour, and I commend my colleagues from New Jersey, Congressman Payne, and my colleague from Illinois, the gentlewoman Robin Kelly, for choosing such a great topic for tonight's special order hour. Selma, Lord Selma. I have the great pleasure of standing before you not only as a representative who represents the great city of Selma, but as a native of Selma, Alabama, and a lifelong member of the historic Brown Chapel AME Church. I know that the journey I now take, the journey that many others who are here today take, was only made possible because of the courage, fortitude, and determination of those brave men and women on that bridge, Bloody Sunday, March 7th, 1965. We who have the privilege and honor of taking this journey must ask ourselves, what will we do to extend the legacy? What will we do to protect the legacy? Selma is the soul of America. It's the place where the struggle for civil rights and voting rights began, the epicenter, if you will, of the voting rights movement. It deserves to be more than just a footnote in the history books. It deserves to take up chapters in the history book. The tactical and strategic voices of Martin Luther King and those brave men and women of SCLC and SNCC that had the fortitude and had the intellect to see this as a strategy, to know that they were speaking not only for themselves and their children, but for future generations. Only a true visionary could defeat such opposition with little more than a dream. And Dr. King held so tightly to his that it forced our country to become a more equal and just nation. Some want to forget the painful past. I know many in my district and many in my city would like to forget our painful past. But we cannot turn the pages as if certain chapters were never written. Nor can we celebrate how far we've come without first acknowledging where we have been. Bloody Sunday forced America to confront its own inhumanity. Our painful past has ushered in a new day. And as I tell my constituents, out of our painful past came the birth of a movement that changed a nation. And from that movement came a human rights movement that changed a world. If we don't write our own history, others will tell it for us. And they may not be so kind. They may not tell our history the way we would tell our history. You know, my father grew up in Selma, as did I. And the Selma of my childhood was very, very different than the Selma of my father's childhood. There has been progress. My father went to segregated schools in Selma. My father drank from colored-only fountains in Selma. My father's mother never got the chance to vote, though she tried to register several times. The Selma that I grew up in had an integrated public high school, a public high school that was 55% African American and 45% white. Yes, across town there was an all-white private school. But I want you to know that the Selma I grew up in the 70s and 80s, it produced me as its first black valedictorian of Selma High School. I know that Selma and the journey that we all take now because of Selma was only made possible because of the bravery of others. And as I stood to give my speech as a valedictorian in 1982 at Selma High School, I remember standing up and saying, maybe one day I could join the likes of a Charlie Rangel, of a John Lewis in the House of Congress. I said it as a pious, overly confident teenager probably, but I said it with every vigor because I believed in my heart that I could be and do anything. Why? Because the people of that community nurtured me, black and white. My teachers, my Girl Scout troop leaders, my Sunday school teachers. Yes, I had proud parents who were educators, educated at Alabama State University. And because of their education at this wonderful quality institution of higher learning, I had a chance to go to Princeton. But I had more than that. I had an obligation to give back, to make sure that others had an opportunity to walk through those same doors. It wasn't enough to be the first. In fact, I was most proud 5 years after I graduated from Princeton that April Williams from Selma High School got to go to Princeton. I must have done something right. The Voting Rights Act of 1965 would have never been possible had it not been for the intellect, the mind of these wonderful leaders, some known. All of us know about the contributions of our colleague John Lewis. All of us know about the contributions of the SCLC, Andy Young and Martin Luther King. But some unknown, like my 6th grade teacher, Miss Richie Jean Jackson. She was featured in the movie Selma because it was her home, the home that she shared with Dr. Jackson, the first black dentist in Selma, that housed Martin Luther King and Andrew Young and all those leaders every time they came to Selma because they couldn't stay at the all-white hotel. Miss Jackson was my 6th grade teacher. Miss Jackson did not live to see the movie Selma, but I am proud that this body is seeking to provide a Congressional Gold Medal to the foot soldiers of the movement so that the Richie Jackson, Mrs. Jacksons of the world, who had the bravery to go and be on that bridge Bloody Sunday or Turnaround Tuesday or the ultimate final march from Selma to Montgomery, that they are acknowledged by this nation for the sacrifices that they made. In closing, I want to remind my colleagues of my guests at this State of the Union, January 20th, 2015. My special guest was 103-year-old Amelia Boynton. Amelia Boynton was characterized in the movie Selma as the proud African-American woman who told Coretta Scott King, "You are prepared. You are the descendants of kings and queens. Your heritage is one, and your bloodline is one that survived slave ships. You are prepared." Amelia Boynton is known for her bravery. That Bloody Sunday when she was bludgeoned, but came back 2 days later and Turnaround Tuesday, and continued to fight in Selma long after the march from Selma to Montgomery. She honored us with her presence. And as person after person came up to her and kissed her on the cheek and said, "Miss Boynton, I stand on your shoulders today. Thank you." Miss Boynton said something very poignant. She said, "Everybody keeps talking about being on my shoulders. I tell them, get off my shoulders. Do your own work. There's plenty of work to be done." I want to remind my colleagues that there is plenty of work for us still to do. I want to honor the legacy of Amelia Boynton, F.D. Reese, John Lewis, and so many.